Sophia Williams sat alone in the cold hospital corridor at 3 in the morning, her hands shaking as she stared at two pieces of paper that would change her life forever. In her left hand, divorce papers with Adrian Stone's bold signature already dried in black ink. In her right hand, a pregnancy test showing two pink lines that seemed to mock her broken heart. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on her tear-streaked face as nurses walked past, their footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. She had come to the hospital thinking she had food poisoning. The nausea, the dizziness, the constant fatigue, she thought it was stress from her crumbling marriage. But now, holding proof of the baby growing inside her, she realized the cruel joke fate had played. The man who had thrown her out of his life like garbage just hours ago had left her with the most precious gift she could ever receive. The memory of that night 6 months ago felt like a lifetime away, when she had been just another face in the crowd at the Metropolitan Museum's annual charity gala. Sophia had been working as a server for the catering company, barely making ends meet in her tiny studio apartment in Queens. She remembered how elegant everyone looked in their designer gowns and expensive suits, while she wore a simple black uniform and comfortable shoes that wouldn't hurt her feet during the 12-hour shift. She had been carrying a tray of champagne glasses when she first saw him. Adrian Stone stood near the marble staircase, tall and imposing in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. His dark hair was styled to perfection, and his green eyes seemed to capture the light from the crystal chandeliers. He was surrounded by important people, politicians, celebrities, other wealthy business owners, but he looked bored, almost annoyed by their attention. Sophia had tried to walk past his group quietly, but her shoe caught on the edge of an ornate rug. Time seemed to slow down as she felt herself falling, the tray of champagne glasses flying through the air. She closed her eyes, waiting for the crash and the embarrassment that would surely follow. Instead, she felt strong arms catch her, pulling her against a solid chest that smelled like expensive cologne and something uniquely masculine. When she opened her eyes, she found herself staring into the most beautiful green eyes she had ever seen. Adrian Stone was holding her, his face just inches from hers, and for a moment the entire gala seemed to disappear around them. She could hear her heart beating in her ears as he slowly helped her stand up straight, his hands gentle but firm on her waist. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth like velvet. Sophia noticed that his accent held just a hint of something foreign, though she couldn't place it. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, suddenly aware that everyone was staring at them. "I didn't mean to. I should have been more careful." Instead of being angry like she expected, Adrian smiled. It was a real smile, not the polite one she had seen him wearing with the other guests. "Don't apologize. These events are boring enough without a little excitement." The other servers had quickly cleaned up the spilled champagne and scattered glass while Sophia stood there, still feeling the warmth of Adrian's hands on her waist. She knew she should get back to work, but something about the way he was looking at her made her feet feel glued to the marble floor. "What's your name?" he asked, completely ignoring the group of important people who were waiting for his attention. "Sophia," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sophia," he repeated, and the way he said her name made her stomach flutter. "That's beautiful. It means wisdom, doesn't it?" She nodded, surprised that he knew the meaning of her name. Most people just called her Sophie or didn't bother to remember it at all. "I'm Adrian," he said, though of course she already knew who he was. Everyone in New York knew Adrian Stone, the billionaire who had built his empire from nothing and was featured on magazine covers almost every month. "I know," she said, then immediately felt stupid for admitting it. He laughed, a warm sound that made her heart skip. "Of course you do. But I'd rather you know me as just Adrian, not the guy on the magazine covers." Before Sophia could respond, her supervisor appeared at her elbow, clearly panicked about one of his servers talking to the evening's most important guest. "Miss Williams, you need to get back to work," he said through gritted teeth, his face red with embarrassment. "Actually," Adrian said smoothly, "I was hoping Miss Williams could show me around the museum. I'm thinking of making a donation for their new wing, and I'd like a personal tour." Sophia watched in amazement as her supervisor's expression changed from anger to desperate enthusiasm. "Of course, Mr. Stone. Whatever you need. Sophia, you give Mr. Stone the best tour of his life, you understand?" And just like that, Sophia found herself walking through the quiet museum halls with the most powerful man in New York. He asked her about the art, listened to her opinions, and seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. She told him about her art history classes at community college, about her dream of one day working in a real museum instead of just serving food at their events. As they walked past a painting of a woman in a garden, Adrian stopped suddenly. "You remind me of her," he said, pointing to the woman in the portrait. She's beautiful, Sophia said, studying the painting. The woman had dark skin like hers, and there was something peaceful about her expression. She is, Adrian agreed, but when Sophia looked at him, he was watching her instead of the painting. But you're more beautiful. Sophia felt her cheeks grow warm. Men had tried to flatter her before, usually when they wanted something, but there was something different about the way Adrian said it. He sounded almost surprised, like the words had slipped out without his permission. They spent the rest of the evening talking, long after the other guests had gone home and the servers had finished cleaning up. Adrian walked her to the subway station, and when she turned to say goodbye, he asked if he could see her again. I don't think that's a good idea, she said, though every part of her wanted to say yes. We're from different worlds. Maybe that's exactly why it's a perfect idea, he replied. He took her phone from her hands gently and typed his number into it. Call me when you get home safe, he said. Please. Sophia did call him, and he called her the next day and the day after that. Within a week they were meeting for coffee. Within a month he was taking her to small, quiet restaurants where they could talk for hours without being interrupted by photographers or business associates who wanted his attention. Adrian showed her a side of himself that she was sure no one else ever saw. He told her about growing up poor in foster care, about working 3 jobs while putting himself through college, about the loneliness that came with having more money than he could ever spend but no one who loved him for who he really was. Sophia told him about her own struggles, losing her parents in a car accident when she was 16, working her way through school, dreaming of a better life but never quite knowing how to reach it. They understood each other in a way that surprised them both. Their relationship moved fast, maybe too fast, but it felt right. Adrian would pick her up after her classes in his simple black sedan instead of his usual expensive cars. They would walk through Central Park, go to small museums, visit bookstores where they could browse for hours without anyone recognizing him. 4 months after they met, Adrian took her to a small chapel in upstate New York. There were no photographers, no society reporters, no business associates, just the 2 of them and a kind old minister who married them in a simple ceremony with wildflowers from the chapel's garden. I love you, Sophia Stone, Adrian said after they exchanged simple gold bands. I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. I love you too, she whispered back, and she meant it with every piece of her heart. For 2 beautiful months they were happy. Adrian kept their marriage secret, saying he wanted to protect their privacy, and Sophia understood. She had seen how cruel the media could be to the women in his life. She was content to be his wife in private, to come home to their penthouse apartment every evening and pretend the outside world didn't exist. But the outside world had a way of crashing in whether you wanted it to or not. The night everything fell apart started like any other. Sophia came home from her evening shift at the museum, expecting to find Adrian waiting for her with takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant and stories about his day. Instead, she found him pacing in their living room, his phone pressed to his ear, his voice cold and businesslike in a way she hadn't heard since their early days together. I don't care what it costs, he was saying. Fix it. Make it go away. I don't want to hear about this problem again. When he saw her, something changed in his expression. The warmth that usually filled his eyes when he looked at her was gone, replaced by something distant and cold. We need to talk, he said after ending his call. Sophia set down her purse, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. What's wrong? Adrian walked to the window that overlooked the city, his hands clasped behind his back. For a long moment he didn't speak, and Sophia could hear her own heartbeat in the silence. This was a mistake, he said finally, his voice so quiet she almost didn't hear him. What was a mistake? She asked, though part of her already knew. This. The marriage. He turned to face her, and she saw a stranger looking back at her. I got caught up in something that wasn't real. You're a sweet girl, Sophia, but we both know this could never work long term. The words hit her like a physical blow. I don't understand. What happened? Did I do something wrong? You didn't do anything, he said, but his tone was cold, dismissive. I just came to my senses. This whole thing was... He gestured around the apartment they had shared, the life they had built together. It was playing house. It wasn't real. Sophia felt tears starting to burn behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. It felt real to me. Well, it wasn't. His words were like ice. I'm having my lawyer draw up divorce papers. You'll be compensated, of course. I'm not unreasonable. Compensated? The word came out as a whisper. Like I'm an employee you're firing? For just a moment, something flickered across Adrian's face, pain maybe or regret. But it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. I've arranged for you to stay in a hotel tonight, he continued in that same cold tone. My assistant will pack your things and have them sent over. The divorce papers will be ready by tomorrow. Sophia stared at him, this man she had loved with everything in her, this man who had promised to spend his life making her happy. Just like that? 6 months of marriage and you're throwing me away like garbage? Don't be dramatic, he said, turning back to the window. We both knew this was temporary. I didn't know that, she said, her voice breaking despite her efforts to stay strong. I thought you loved me. I thought I did too, he replied without turning around. I was wrong. Sophia stood there for another moment, waiting for him to take it back, to tell her this was some kind of cruel joke or a test. But Adrian remained by the window, his shoulders rigid, his silence final. She walked to their bedroom, what had been their bedroom, and grabbed a few essential items. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely zip her small suitcase. When she came back to the living room, Adrian was still standing by the window. I loved you, she said one last time. I really loved you. He didn't respond, didn't even turn around. Sophia waited for 10 more seconds, counting them in her head, giving him one last chance to stop her from walking out of his life forever. He didn't take it. Now, sitting in this hospital corridor with divorce papers in one hand and a pregnancy test in the other, Sophia realized that the cruelest part wasn't that Adrian had broken her heart. The cruelest part was that he had given her the most precious gift in the world just before he had thrown her away, and he would never know about it. She pressed her hand to her still flat stomach and made a silent promise to the tiny life growing inside her. I'll love you enough for both of us, she whispered. I'll give you everything he never gave me. I promise. The elevator doors opened and a young couple emerged, the woman holding a newborn baby wrapped in a pink blanket. They were both crying happy tears, and the man kept kissing the woman's forehead and whispering how proud he was of her. Sophia watched them walk away, and for the first time since leaving Adrian's apartment, she smiled. She folded the divorce papers and put them in her purse next to the pregnancy test. Tomorrow she would figure out what came next. Tonight, she would go home to her tiny studio apartment and start planning a future for herself and her child. Adrian Stone had thrown her away, but he had also given her the greatest gift of her life. She would make sure their child never felt unwanted, never felt like a mistake. She would build a life full of love and warmth, and everything Adrian had shown her was possible before he had ripped it all away. As she stood up and walked toward the exit, Sophia made another promise, this one to herself. Someday, when she was strong enough, when she had built something beautiful from the ashes of her broken heart, she would make sure Adrian Stone knew exactly what he had lost. But first she had a baby to prepare for and a new life to build. And she would build it far away from the man who had taught her that love could be both the most beautiful and the most dangerous thing in the world. The morning after receiving the divorce papers, Sophia woke up in her small studio apartment feeling like she was living in someone else's nightmare. The pregnancy test sat on her nightstand like a ticking bomb, proof that her life had become impossibly complicated in the span of 24 hours. She pressed her face into her pillow and allowed herself 5 minutes to cry, 5 minutes to mourn the future she had imagined with Adrian, the family they might have been, the love she thought would last forever. After those 5 minutes, she forced herself to get up. She had work to do, bills to pay, and now a baby to prepare for. Self-pity was a luxury she couldn't afford. Sophia made herself a cup of weak tea. Coffee made her nauseous now, though she hadn't understood why until last night, and sat at her tiny kitchen table to face reality. Her savings account had exactly $347. Her rent was due in 2 weeks. She worked 3 part-time jobs, serving at museum events, cleaning offices at night, and helping at a local daycare on weekends. None of them paid well, and none of them would be easy to manage while pregnant. The worst part was that she couldn't tell anyone about the baby's father. Who would believe that Sophia Williams, who lived in a 4th-floor walk-up and bought her groceries at the discount store, had been secretly married to Adrian Stone? Even her best friend Carmen would think she was having some kind of breakdown. At 10 o'clock her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but something made her answer anyway. Miss Williams? This is Richard Blackwell from Blackwell Morrison and Associates. I represent Adrian Stone. Sophia's stomach dropped. She had hoped Adrian would handle the divorce quietly, maybe just mail her the papers to sign. She should have known he would send lawyers to make sure everything was clean and legal. Mr. Stone has asked me to finalize your divorce proceedings as quickly as possible, the lawyer continued in a voice that sounded like he was reading from a script. I have the papers ready for your signature, and Mr. Stone has authorized me to offer you a settlement. I don't want his money, Sophia said quickly. There was a pause. Miss Williams, I think you should consider this carefully. Mr. Stone is prepared to offer you $50,000 in exchange for your signature on the divorce papers and a confidentiality agreement. $50,000. It was more money than Sophia had ever seen in her life. It would pay for the baby's needs, for her medical bills, for a chance to maybe go back to school and build a better future. But taking Adrian's money felt like admitting that everything between them had been fake, like accepting payment for services rendered. I said I don't want his money, she repeated. Miss Williams, the lawyer's voice became more insistent. Mr. Stone wants to be generous. He recognizes that this situation is difficult for you. But he's also prepared to make things more difficult if necessary. You worked at several venues where his business associates gather. You have access to private information that could be valuable to his competitors. The confidentiality agreement is not optional. The threat was clear, even wrapped in legal language. Sign the papers and take the money, or face the consequences of refusing a man with unlimited resources and no conscience. Fine, Sophia said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll sign. Excellent. I'll have the papers messengered to your apartment this afternoon. After hanging up, Sophia sat in her tiny kitchen and stared at the wall. This was how Adrian saw her now, as a threat to be managed, a loose end to be tied up with money and legal threats. The man who had once told her she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen now saw her as nothing more than a problem to be solved. The papers arrived 3 hours later, delivered by a courier in an expensive suit who looked around her shabby apartment with obvious disdain. Along with the divorce documents and confidentiality agreement, there was a cashier's check for $50,000 made out in her name. Sophia stared at the check for a long time. This money could change her life, could give her baby opportunities she never had. But it also felt like blood money, payment for agreeing to pretend that the most important months of her life had never happened. She signed the papers with shaking hands, her signature looking small and defeated next to Adrian's bold scrawl. When she came to the confidentiality agreement, she read it carefully. She was agreeing never to speak publicly about her relationship with Adrian Stone, never to contact him or his family, never to make any claims about their marriage or seek any further financial support. The agreement made no mention of children. Sophia realized that Adrian's lawyers had assumed she wasn't pregnant, that this was just a simple case of a rich man discarding an inconvenient wife. They had no idea that in 7 months, there would be a baby who shared Adrian's distinctive green eyes and sharp jawline. She signed the confidentiality agreement and sealed it in the envelope the courier was waiting for. As soon as he left, she tore up the check and flushed the pieces down her toilet. She would find another way to provide for her child, a way that didn't involve taking money from the man who had called their love a mistake. Over the next few weeks, Sophia discovered just how difficult that was going to be. The morning sickness hit her hard, making it impossible to work at the museum events where the smell of food made her violently ill. She lost that job first, then the night cleaning job when she couldn't stop falling asleep during her shifts. The daycare job was the only one she managed to keep, and only because the owner, Mrs. Patterson, was a kind woman who noticed Sophia's struggles and asked gentle questions until the truth came out. "Honey," Mrs. Patterson said one afternoon as Sophia sat in the break room trying to keep down a piece of dry toast, "when is your baby due?" Sophia looked up in surprise. She had been so careful to hide her pregnancy, wearing loose clothes and making excuses for her frequent trips to the bathroom. "How did you know?" she asked weakly. Mrs. Patterson smiled. "I've had 4 babies of my own. I recognize the signs. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" For the first time since finding out about the pregnancy, Sophia broke down completely. She told Mrs. Patterson everything, about the secret marriage, about Adrian throwing her away, about the divorce papers and the money she had refused to take. She didn't mention Adrian's name, just called him, someone who turned out to be different than I thought. Mrs. Patterson listened without judgment, occasionally handing Sophia tissues or rubbing her back while she cried. When Sophia finished her story, the older woman was quiet for a long moment. "You know," she said finally, "my sister lives in a little town called Millbrook about 3 hours north of here. It's right on the coast, real peaceful. She runs a bakery there and she's been looking for help. The pay isn't much, but there's a small apartment above the shop that comes with the job. Might be a good place for a fresh start." Sophia looked up through her tears. "You would do that for me?" "Honey, sometimes we all need a chance to start over. And babies deserve to be born somewhere filled with love, not stress and heartache." 2 weeks later, Sophia packed her few belongings into 2 suitcases and took a bus to Millbrook. The town was everything Mrs. Patterson had promised, small and quiet, with tree-lined streets and houses that looked like they belonged on postcards. The air smelled like salt water and pine trees, nothing like the exhaust and concrete of New York City. Emma Patterson was a shorter, rounder version of her sister, with the same kind eyes and warm smile. She took one look at Sophia stepping off the bus, tired and pregnant and trying to look braver than she felt, and immediately wrapped her in a motherly hug. "Welcome to Millbrook, sweetheart," she said. "Let's get you settled in." The apartment above the bakery was small but clean, with big windows that looked out over the town's main street. It came furnished with simple, comfortable pieces that made it feel homey rather than fancy. For the first time in months, Sophia felt like she could breathe. Working at Sweet Dreams Bakery was different from any job Sophia had ever had. Emma treated her like family rather than an employee, teaching her to bake bread and decorate cakes, letting her work at her own pace as her pregnancy progressed. The customers were mostly locals who became familiar faces quickly: Mrs. Henderson, who came in every Tuesday for her special order sugar cookies; Tom the mailman, who always bought a coffee and blueberry muffin on his afternoon route; teenage couples who shared slices of chocolate cake on dates. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt like she belonged somewhere. As her belly grew rounder, the townspeople embraced her story that she was a young widow starting over. No one asked uncomfortable questions or pried into her past. They simply accepted her as Emma's helper, the quiet girl who made the best cinnamon rolls in 3 counties and always had a smile for their children. Dr. James Morrison was the town's only doctor, a man in his 50s who had moved to Millbrook after his wife died, looking for a quieter life. He took care of Sophia's prenatal appointments with the same gentle competence he showed all his patients, never making her feel judged for being young and unmarried and clearly struggling financially. "Your baby is lucky," he told her during one appointment. "Not every child gets a mother who wants them this much." Sophia pressed her hand to her rounded belly, feeling the baby kick in response. "I want to be enough," she said quietly. "I want to be everything this baby needs." "You will be," Dr. Morrison assured her. "Love is the most important thing you can give a child, and it's clear you have plenty of that." As her due date approached, Sophia found herself thinking less and less about Adrian and more about the future she was building. She had started taking business classes online, dreaming of maybe opening her own bakery someday. Emma encouraged her ambitions, often joking that Sophia had better ideas about running the business than she did. "You've got a good head for this," Emma said one evening as they closed the shop together. "And you're not afraid of hard work. That's a rare combination." Sophia smiled, feeling proud of herself for the first time in months. She was building something real here, something that belonged to her and her baby. Adrian Stone and his cold dismissal felt like something that had happened to someone else in another lifetime. But late at night, when she lay in bed feeling the baby move inside her, she sometimes wondered what Adrian would think if he knew. Would he care that he had a child growing up without him? Would he want to be part of the baby's life, or would he see this as another problem to be solved with lawyers and money? Sophia pushed those thoughts away. Adrian had made his choice when he threw her out of his life. Now she was making hers. She was going to give her baby everything Adrian never gave her: unconditional love, a stable home, and the security of knowing they were wanted. The baby kicked hard against her ribs as if agreeing with her decision. Sophia smiled and rubbed her belly gently. "Don't worry, little one," she whispered. "We're going to be just fine. Better than fine. We're going to be happy." Outside her window, the ocean waves crashed against the shore in a steady rhythm that had become her lullaby. Tomorrow would bring another day of work, another step toward the independent life she was building for herself and her child. She was no longer the broken girl who had cried in a hospital corridor. She was becoming the woman her baby would be proud to call mother. Adrian Stone had thought he was throwing her away, but instead he had set her free to become someone stronger than she had ever imagined possible. And soon, very soon, she would have the most beautiful reminder that some good things could come from even the most painful experiences. Her baby was due in 6 weeks, and Sophia had never been more ready for anything in her life. The first contraction hit Sophia while she was frosting a 3-layer wedding cake at 5 in the morning. She had woken up early, unable to sleep with the baby pressing against her ribs, and decided to get some work done before the bakery opened. The sharp pain that shot through her lower back made her gasp and nearly drop the piping bag filled with delicate pink roses. "Not today, little one," she whispered, rubbing her enormous belly. "Mrs. Bradley needs this cake for her daughter's wedding tomorrow." But her baby had other plans. By 7 o'clock, the contractions were coming every 10 minutes, and Emma found Sophia gripping the counter, breathing heavily through another wave of pain. "Oh honey," Emma said, immediately untying her apron. "Why didn't you call me? How long has this been going on?" Since 5, Sophia admitted between breaths. But they're not that bad yet. I can finish the cake first. Emma gave her a look that reminded Sophia exactly where Mrs. Patterson had gotten her no-nonsense attitude. Sophia Rose Williams, you are not finishing that cake. You are getting in my car right now and we are going to see Dr. Morrison. The drive to Dr. Morrison's clinic felt like it took forever, even though it was only 10 minutes through the quiet town streets. Sophia gripped Emma's hand during contractions, amazed by how much stronger they were getting. She had read books about labor, had taken an online childbirth class, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of her body preparing to bring her baby into the world. Dr. Morrison examined her with his usual calm competence. You're about 4 centimeters dilated, he said with a reassuring smile. This baby is definitely coming today, but you've got a little time yet. First babies usually take their time. Is everything okay? Sophia asked, suddenly worried. The baby's not too early? The baby is exactly on time, Dr. Morrison assured her. 39 weeks and healthy as can be. Are you ready to become a mother? Sophia nodded, though she wasn't sure anyone could ever really be ready for something so life-changing. Over the next 8 hours, she labored with Emma holding one hand and Dr. Morrison's nurse, Janet, holding the other. The small clinic wasn't fancy like the hospitals in New York City, but it was filled with warmth and care that made Sophia feel safe. As the afternoon wore on and the contractions got stronger, Sophia found herself thinking about Adrian. Not with sadness this time, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Their marriage had been brief and painful, but it had given her this incredible gift. In a few hours she would hold a piece of him in her arms, the best piece, the innocent piece that would never hurt her the way he had. I can see the head, Dr. Morrison announced suddenly. Sophia, your baby is almost here. On the next contraction, I need you to push as hard as you can. The next few minutes were a blur of effort and pain and anticipation. Then suddenly Dr. Morrison was holding up a tiny, perfect baby girl, covered in vernix and crying lustily at the bright world she had just entered. It's a girl, he announced, though Sophia had already known somehow. A beautiful, healthy baby girl. When they placed the baby on Sophia's chest, still connected by the umbilical cord, the rest of the world disappeared. The baby stopped crying and looked up at her mother with eyes that were unmistakably Adrian's, the same distinctive green, the same long lashes, the same intelligent expression that had first captured Sophia's heart at the museum gala. Hello, Lily, Sophia whispered, the name coming to her as naturally as breathing. I'm your mama. I've been waiting so long to meet you. Lily Rose Williams weighed 6 pounds 8 ounces, and had a perfect rosebud mouth and tiny fingers that immediately wrapped around Sophia's thumb with surprising strength. She had Adrian's eyes and coloring, but something about the shape of her face reminded Sophia of her own mother, as if all the love that had been lost was finding its way back through this tiny miracle. Over the next few days, as Sophia adjusted to life with a newborn, she marveled at how completely Lily had changed everything. The exhaustion was overwhelming. Lily seemed to have her days and nights confused, sleeping peacefully during the day and wanting to nurse and be held all night long. But every time Sophia looked at her daughter's face, every time Lily's tiny hand curled around her finger, she felt a love so fierce and protective it took her breath away. Emma was an incredible help, taking over most of the bakery work and bringing Sophia meals she was too tired to prepare for herself. The whole town seemed excited about Millbrook's newest resident. Flowers and baby gifts appeared at the bakery door daily, along with casseroles and offers to help with anything Sophia needed. This is what community feels like, Sophia told Lily one evening as they rocked in the comfortable chair Emma had bought for the apartment. These people barely know us, but they're treating us like family. Dr. Morrison stopped by regularly to check on both mother and baby, always bringing some small gift, a stuffed animal, a picture book, a soft blanket knitted by his housekeeper. During one visit, when Lily was 3 weeks old, he sat down across from Sophia with a more serious expression than usual. You know, he said carefully, Lily's father, whoever he is, he's missing out on something incredible. Sophia looked down at her daughter, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. He made his choice, she said quietly. He doesn't even know she exists, and that's probably for the best. Is it though? Dr. Morrison asked gently. Every child deserves a chance to know both parents if possible. Sophia shook her head. Not this one. Lily's father, he's not a good man. He's selfish and cold, and he would only hurt her the way he hurt me. We're better off without him. Dr. Morrison didn't push the subject, but Sophia could see the concern in his eyes. She knew he meant well, but he didn't understand. Adrian Stone lived in a world where people were disposable, where love was just another business transaction. Lily deserved better than that. As the weeks turned into months, Sophia fell into a rhythm with her new life. She worked in the bakery during Lily's naps, with Emma always ready to take over baby duty when needed. The customers adored Lily, and she seemed to thrive on all the attention. She was a happy baby, quick to smile and laugh, rarely fussy except when she was hungry or tired. When Lily was 6 months old, Sophia made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She asked Emma if she could buy into the bakery as a partner. "I've been thinking about it for months," Sophia explained over dinner one evening. "You're not getting any younger and you've mentioned wanting to slow down. I could handle more of the day-to-day operations, maybe expand the business a little. I have some ideas for online orders, maybe catering for events in the bigger towns nearby." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Honey, I would love that. But do you have the money for something like that?" Sophia had been saving every penny she could, living as simply as possible and putting aside money from her wages. She had also been taking business classes online during Lily's naps, learning about accounting and marketing and business planning. "I have enough for a small partnership," she said. "And I have big dreams." "Then let's make those dreams happen," Emma said, reaching across the table to squeeze Sophia's hand. Over the next year, Sophia threw herself into building the business. She redesigned the bakery's simple website, added online ordering, and started a blog featuring recipes and pictures of their creations. She convinced Emma to expand their catering services and reached out to event planners in the surrounding areas. The hard work paid off. Sweet Dreams Bakery went from a small local business to a regional destination. Food bloggers started writing about their amazing cinnamon rolls and wedding cakes. Tour buses began stopping in Millbrook specifically to visit the bakery that had been featured in several food magazines. Through it all, Lily grew from a baby into a curious, active toddler with her father's intelligence and her mother's determination. She took her first steps in the bakery, chasing after the family cat who had adopted them both. Her first word was cookie, which made Emma laugh until she cried. She had Adrian's green eyes and his thick, dark hair, but she had inherited Sophia's warm smile and generous heart. By the time Lily turned 2, Sophia had bought out Emma's full share of the bakery and was planning to open a second location in a town 30 miles away. She had also started writing a cookbook, documenting all the recipes she had learned from Emma along with her own creations. "You've built something amazing here," Dr. Morrison told her one day as he watched Lily play with blocks on the bakery floor. "Your daughter is lucky to have such a determined mother." Sophia smiled, watching Lily stack blocks into an elaborate tower that defied gravity. "I want her to see that women can build their own dreams. I don't want her to ever think she needs someone else to take care of her." "That's important," Dr. Morrison agreed. "But don't forget that it's also okay to let people love you. Not every man is like Lily's father." Sophia knew Dr. Morrison was interested in her romantically. He had been kind and patient, never pushing but always available when she needed help or advice. He was a good man, the kind of man who would make a wonderful stepfather to Lily. But Sophia's heart still felt too bruised to risk loving someone again. "Maybe someday," she said, which was more than she had been able to say a year ago. As Lily's 3rd birthday approached, Sophia found herself thinking more about Adrian. Not with the raw pain that had once consumed her, but with a kind of curious detachment. She wondered what he was doing, whether his business was still thriving, whether he ever thought about the wife he had thrown away so coldly. She had kept track of him occasionally through business news websites, though she told herself it was just curiosity. Stone Enterprises seemed to be struggling lately. Several major deals had fallen through, and there were rumors of financial difficulties. Some articles speculated that Adrian was losing his touch, that the golden boy of New York business was finally facing the consequences of his ruthless approach to relationships and deals. Sophia felt no satisfaction in his troubles, just a kind of sad emptiness. The man she had loved would never have let his empire crumble out of carelessness or spite. But then again, the man she had loved had never really existed at all. What did exist was Lily, beautiful, smart, funny Lily who filled Sophia's life with joy and purpose. She was about to turn 3, and she was already showing signs of the intelligence and determination she had inherited from both parents. She loved helping in the bakery, standing on a step stool to help Sophia measure ingredients and always wanting to be involved in decorating cakes. "Mama, when I grow up, I want to make cakes just like you," Lily announced one afternoon as they worked together on a birthday cake for one of her little friends. "You can be anything you want to be," Sophia told her, kissing the top of her dark head. "Anything at all." And she meant it. Lily would grow up knowing she was loved and wanted and capable of achieving anything she set her mind to. She would never doubt her worth the way Sophia once had. She would never let anyone make her feel disposable or unlovable. Sophia had built a good life in Millbrook, better than good. She had a thriving business, wonderful friends, and the most amazing daughter in the world. She had proven to herself that she could survive heartbreak and build something beautiful from the ashes. But sometimes, late at night when Lily was sleeping and the bakery was quiet, Sophia found herself wondering what would happen if Adrian ever discovered he had a daughter. Would he want to be part of Lily's life? Would he try to take her away? Or would he see Lily as just another problem to be solved with lawyers and money? Those thoughts scared her more than anything else. Lily was her whole world now, and the idea of Adrian Stone disrupting their peaceful life with his wealth and power and cold manipulation made Sophia's blood run cold. She had built walls around their little family, walls of distance and anonymity and legal protection. As far as the world knew, Lily Williams was the daughter of a young widow who had started over in a small coastal town. Adrian Stone had no idea his child existed, and Sophia intended to keep it that way. But as Lily grew older and her resemblance to her father became more pronounced, Sophia sometimes wondered how long she could maintain that fiction. And deep in her heart, she knew that someday she might have to face the man who had broken her heart and fight to protect the child who had healed it. For now, though, they were safe and happy in their little world. And that was enough. 3 years after throwing Sophia out of his life, Adrian Stone sat in his corner office on the 52nd floor of the Stone Tower, staring at financial reports that painted a picture he could barely comprehend. Stone Enterprises, the empire he had built from nothing, was falling apart piece by piece, and he couldn't seem to stop it. The Hartwell deal had been the latest disaster. 6 months of negotiations, millions in projected profits, and then at the last minute the clients had walked away. No explanation, no counteroffer, just a polite email saying they had decided to go with another firm. It was the 4th major deal to fall through in the past year, and Adrian's board of directors was starting to ask uncomfortable questions. The quarterly reports are worse than we anticipated, his CFO, Margaret Chin, said as she placed another stack of papers on his desk. We're down 30% from last year, and the projections for next quarter look even worse. Adrian rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building behind his eyes. What about the Morrison account? The restaurant chain expansion in the Pacific Northwest? Margaret's expression was grim. They pulled out yesterday. Apparently, they're concerned about our company's stability. Our stability? Adrian's voice was sharp with disbelief. We've been in business for 15 years. We've never missed a deadline, never failed to deliver on a contract. I know, Margaret said carefully. But perception is reality in this business, and right now the perception is that Stone Enterprises is in trouble. After Margaret left, Adrian stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city that had once felt like his kingdom. New York stretched out below him, millions of people going about their lives, completely unaware that one of the city's most successful businessmen was watching his world crumble. He thought about calling his assistant to cancel his afternoon meetings, maybe go home early and try to figure out where everything had gone wrong. But home was just a cold penthouse apartment that had felt empty ever since. Adrian cut off that thought before it could fully form. He had trained himself not to think about Sophia, not to remember the 2 months when his apartment had felt like a real home instead of just an expensive place to sleep. Those memories were dangerous, counterproductive. He had made the right decision in ending their marriage. It had been necessary. But if it had been the right decision, why did everything in his life start falling apart afterward? Adrian's phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Dinner tonight at 8. We need to discuss your recent business troubles. He almost ignored the message, but Victoria Stone wasn't a woman who accepted being ignored. She had built her own successful career as a corporate lawyer before marrying Adrian's adoptive father, and she had strong opinions about how her son should run his business and his life. The Stone family penthouse on the Upper East Side was a monument to wealth and good taste, decorated by famous designers and filled with art that cost more than most people made in a year. Adrian had grown up in this apartment after the Stones adopted him when he was 12, but it had never felt like home. It was too perfect, too cold, too focused on impressing visitors rather than providing comfort to the people who lived there. You look terrible, Victoria said by way of greeting when Adrian arrived. At 62, she was still an elegant woman, her silver hair perfectly styled and her designer dress impeccable. But her eyes held the same cold calculation that had made her feared in corporate boardrooms across the city. Thank you for that warm welcome, Adrian replied, accepting the scotch his mother handed him. I'm not here to coddle you, Victoria said, settling into her favorite chair with her own drink. I'm here to figure out why my son's business empire is falling apart and what we're going to do about it. The market is difficult right now, Adrian began, but Victoria cut him off with a sharp gesture. Don't give me excuses. I've been watching your company's performance for the past 3 years, and the decline started exactly when you made that ridiculous decision to marry some nobody waitress. Adrian's hand tightened on his glass. That marriage lasted 2 months. It has nothing to do with my business performance. Doesn't it? Victoria leaned forward, her eyes sharp. You were distracted, Adrian. You started making emotional decisions instead of logical ones. You alienated important contacts by canceling meetings to spend time with that girl. You lost focus on what matters. What matters? Adrian asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. Success. Power. Building something that lasts. Not playing house with some girl who was obviously after your money. Adrian thought about Sophia's face when he had offered her the settlement money, the hurt and anger in her eyes when she realized he was trying to buy her silence. She had looked at him like he was a monster, and maybe he was. But it had been necessary. His mother had made that clear. I did what had to be done, he said quietly. Yes, you did. But the damage was already done. You showed weakness, Adrian. In this business, weakness is blood in the water. Your competitors smelled it, and they've been circling ever since. Victoria was probably right. She usually was when it came to business strategy. But lately, Adrian found himself wondering if maybe being weak wasn't the worst thing in the world. Maybe being strong all the time, never letting anyone get close, never trusting anyone enough to be vulnerable, maybe that was its own kind of weakness. There's something else we need to discuss, Victoria continued. Isabella Worthington is back in the city. Adrian's stomach dropped. Isabella Worthington had been his fiancée 5 years ago, before he met Sophia. Their engagement had been more of a business merger than a romance, 2 wealthy families combining their resources and social standing. Isabella was beautiful, sophisticated, and absolutely perfect for him on paper. She was also cold, manipulative, and had made it clear that she expected their marriage to be a convenient arrangement rather than a love match. I'm not interested in rekindling anything with Isabella, Adrian said firmly. You should be, Victoria replied. Her family's investment firm could help stabilize Stone Enterprises. A marriage between you two would send a strong message to the business community that you're back on track. A marriage of convenience? Is that really what you want for me? Victoria's expression softened slightly, showing a rare glimpse of something that might have been maternal concern. I want you to be successful and secure. Love is a luxury, Adrian. It makes people do foolish things, make poor decisions. Look what happened with that waitress. Adrian finished his scotch and set the glass down harder than necessary. Her name was Sophia. And where is Sophia now? Victoria asked pointedly. Did she fight for your marriage? Did she try to work things out when you had problems? No. She took the money and disappeared. That tells you everything you need to know about her character. But that wasn't true, Adrian realized with a start. Sophia hadn't taken the money. His lawyer had told him that she'd torn up the check, had only signed the papers because of the legal threats they'd made. She had walked away with nothing but her dignity, and Adrian had let her go. I need to think about this, he said, standing to leave. Don't think too long, Victoria warned. Isabella won't wait forever, and neither will your business. Sometimes the right choice isn't the easy choice, but it's still the right choice. On the drive back to his apartment, Adrian found himself taking a detour through the part of the city where he had first met Sophia. The Metropolitan Museum looked the same as always, elegant and imposing against the night sky. He parked across the street and sat in his car, remembering the night everything had changed. He could still see Sophia falling with that tray of champagne glasses, could still remember the way she had felt in his arms when he caught her. She had been so beautiful, so genuine, so different from everyone else in his world. For 6 months she had made him feel like the man he wanted to be instead of the man he had to be. And he had thrown it all away because his mother had convinced him it was a mistake. Victoria had painted a picture of a gold digger, a manipulative woman who was using Adrian for his money and connections. But looking back now, Adrian couldn't remember a single instance where Sophia had asked for anything. She had been content with their simple dates, had seemed almost uncomfortable when he tried to buy her expensive gifts. She had loved him, really loved him, and he had convinced himself it wasn't real because it was easier than believing he deserved that kind of love. Adrian's phone rang, interrupting his memories. The caller ID showed Margaret Chen's name. I'm sorry to bother you so late, she said when he answered, but we just got word that the Patterson Group is withdrawing their contract. That's another $2 million in lost revenue. Adrian closed his eyes, feeling the walls closing in around him. Do we know why? The usual reasons. Concerns about our financial stability, questions about our leadership. Adrian, we need to do something dramatic to turn this around, or we're going to lose everything. After hanging up, Adrian sat in his car for another hour, watching people go in and out of the museum where his life had changed forever. He thought about Sophia, wondered where she was now, whether she was happy. He thought about the man he had been when he was with her, kinder, gentler, more human. That man might have been able to save his business through trust and relationships instead of fear and manipulation. But that man was gone, destroyed by his own choices and his mother's cold pragmatism. All that was left was the shell of Adrian Stone, the ruthless businessman who had built an empire and was now watching it crumble around him. As he finally drove home to his empty apartment, Adrian made a decision that surprised him. Tomorrow he would call Isabella Worthington and accept whatever proposal she and her family wanted to make. He would marry her, merge their businesses, and try to salvage what was left of his empire. It was the practical choice, the smart choice, the choice that would make his mother proud and his shareholders happy. It was also the choice that would ensure he never had to risk his heart again, never had to face the possibility of finding and losing real love twice in one lifetime. But late that night, as Adrian lay in his king-sized bed staring at the ceiling, he found himself wondering what Sophia would think of the man he had become. Would she recognize him at all? Or had he become so lost in his pursuit of success and power that there was nothing left of the man who had once loved her with everything he had? The questions followed him into his dreams, where he was always chasing someone through empty hallways, calling out apologies that no one could hear. 3 years had transformed Sophia Williams from a broken girl into a formidable businesswoman. Standing in the conference room of the Grandview Hotel in Manhattan, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit and holding herself with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from scratch, she looked nothing like the scared young woman who had fled the city with divorce papers and a broken heart. Sweet Dreams Bakery had grown beyond her wildest dreams. What had started as a small-town bakery now had 12 locations across 3 states, a thriving online business, and a cookbook that had spent 6 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Sophia's success story had been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur magazine, and several food industry publications. She was in New York for the International Food Service Convention, where she was scheduled to speak on a panel about building successful small businesses. "Mama, look how tall the buildings are." 3-year-old Lily pressed her face against the hotel room window, her green eyes wide with wonder at the city skyline. Sophia smiled, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "They are pretty impressive, aren't they? But remember what we talked about. While we're here, you need to stay close to Mama at all times, okay?" Lily nodded seriously. She was an unusually mature child, perhaps because she had grown up around adults in the bakery, or perhaps because she had inherited her parents' intelligence. She had Adrian's striking green eyes and sharp features, but she had Sophia's warm smile and generous heart. "Are we going to see the museum you told me about?" Lily asked. Sophia's chest tightened. She had told Lily stories about the Metropolitan Museum, about the beautiful art and the peaceful gardens, but she hadn't mentioned that it was where she had met Lily's father. That was a story for when Lily was older, if she ever told it at all. "Maybe tomorrow," Sophia said. "Today we're going to the convention center where Mama has to work." The food service convention was being held at the Jacob Javits Center, a massive glass building that buzzed with activity as thousands of food industry professionals networked, attended seminars, and showcased their products. Sophia had reserved a booth for Sweet Dreams Bakery, complete with samples of their most popular items and information about their catering services for corporate events. As she set up the display with help from her assistant, Rebecca, Sophia felt a familiar mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had worked hard to get to this point, but sometimes she still felt like she was pretending to be someone more important than she really was. The imposter syndrome was something she struggled with, especially in settings like this where she was surrounded by executives from major corporations. "Ms. Williams?" A young man in an expensive suit approached her booth with a press badge hanging around his neck. "I'm Jake Martinez from Food Industry Weekly. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about your remarkable success story." Sophia had given dozens of interviews over the past year, but she still felt a flutter of nerves each time. "Of course," she said, smoothing her jacket and making sure Lily was occupied with her coloring book at a small table nearby. "Your rise in the industry has been nothing short of meteoric," Jake began. 3 years ago you were working in a single small-town bakery. Now you're running a multi-million-dollar company. What do you attribute that success to?" "Hard work, good people, and a lot of luck," Sophia replied, giving the answer she had perfected over months of similar interviews. I also had the advantage of starting in a community that supported me from day one. Millbrook isn't just where my business started, it's where I learned that success isn't just about profit margins. It's about building something that makes people's lives a little bit better. And you're a single mother as well, Jake continued. How do you balance running a growing business with raising your daughter? Sophia glanced over at Lily, who was carefully coloring a picture of a birthday cake. It's not easy, she admitted. But Lily is my inspiration for everything I do. I want her to see that women can build their own dreams, that we don't have to wait for someone else to give us permission to be successful. As the interview continued, Sophia found herself relaxing into the familiar rhythm of questions and answers. She talked about her expansion plans, her commitment to using local ingredients whenever possible, and her scholarship program for single mothers who wanted to start their own food service businesses. One last question, Jake said. There are rumors that you're considering going public with your company. Any truth to that? Sophia smiled. I'm always considering different options for growth. But whatever decisions I make, they'll be based on what's best for my employees, my customers, and my daughter. Not necessarily in that order. After Jake left, Sophia spent the rest of the morning networking and meeting with potential clients. Several major corporations expressed interest in her catering services, and she had productive conversations with suppliers who could help her expand into new markets. At noon, she took Lily to the convention center's food court for lunch, letting her daughter choose between chicken nuggets and pizza while she reviewed her notes for the afternoon panel discussion. That's when she saw him. Adrian Stone was standing near the registration desk, talking to someone from the convention organizers. He looked exactly the same as he had 3 years ago, tall, imposing, impeccably dressed, but there was something different about him too. Something tired around his eyes, something less confident in the way he held himself. Sophia's first instinct was to grab Lily and run. Her second instinct was to march over there and tell him exactly what she thought of him. Instead, she sat frozen in her chair, watching the man who had given her the greatest gift of her life and the greatest heartbreak. Adrian turned, scanning the crowd, and for a moment their eyes met across the busy food court. Sophia saw shock, then recognition, then something that might have been pain flash across his features. He took a step toward her, then stopped, seeming to notice Lily for the first time. Even from a distance, there was no mistaking the resemblance. Lily had Adrian's eyes, his jawline, his thick dark hair. Anyone who knew him would see the connection immediately. Sophia watched as understanding dawned on Adrian's face. His expression went from confusion to shock to something that looked almost like wonder. He stared at Lily for a long moment, then looked back at Sophia with questions written all over his face. "Mama, who is that man?" Lily asked, following Sophia's gaze. "Why is he looking at us?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Sophia lied, her voice surprisingly steady. "Finish your lunch. We need to get back to our booth soon." But she could feel Adrian's gaze on them like a physical weight. When she finally looked up again, he was walking toward their table, his expression carefully controlled but his hands shaking slightly. "Sophia," he said when he reached them, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Adrian," she replied coolly, standing up and instinctively moving slightly in front of Lily. I can't believe you're here," he said, his eyes darting between Sophia and Lily. You look amazing." "Thank you," Sophia said, her tone polite but distant. "I'm here for the convention. I have a business now." "I know," Adrian said quickly. "I mean, I've seen articles about Sweet Dreams Bakery. You've done incredibly well." "Yes, I have," Sophia agreed, lifting her chin with a pride that was entirely earned. Adrian's gaze moved to Lily again, and Sophia saw him swallow hard. "And this is?" "This is my daughter Lily," Sophia said firmly, putting a protective hand on the little girl's shoulder. "Hello," Lily said politely, the way Sophia had taught her to greet adults. "What's your name?" Adrian looked like he had been punched in the stomach. I'm Adrian," he managed. "That's a nice name," Lily said with a smile that was pure Sophia. "Do you work with food too? Mama makes the best cakes in the whole world." "I'm sure she does," Adrian said, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked back at Sophia, his eyes full of questions she wasn't ready to answer. "We should go," Sophia said, gathering up Lily's coloring book and crayons. "I have a panel to prepare for." "Sophia, wait," Adrian said desperately. Could we talk? Please?" "I don't think that's a good idea," Sophia replied. "We have nothing to discuss." "Don't we?" Adrian asked, his gaze meaningful as it moved between her and Lily again. Sophia felt her carefully constructed composure start to crack. "No," she said firmly. "We don't. You made your choices 3 years ago. I've made mine." She picked up Lily, who was still clutching her coloring book, and walked away without looking back. But she could feel Adrian watching them go, could practically feel the wheels turning in his head as he processed what he had just discovered. Back at her booth, Sophia tried to focus on her work, but her hands were shaking as she rearranged the same display items over and over again. Rebecca noticed her distress immediately. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that," Sophia murmured, glancing around to make sure Adrian wasn't following them. For the rest of the afternoon, Sophia found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, expecting to see Adrian approaching. But he didn't come to her booth, didn't try to corner her in the hallways. Maybe he had gotten the message that she wanted nothing to do with him. But as she was packing up at the end of the day, she found a business card tucked under her display materials. On the back, in Adrian's distinctive handwriting, was a single line: "She has my eyes. Please don't leave without talking to me." Sophia stared at the card for a long moment, then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. But even as she did it, she knew the conversation was inevitable. Adrian had seen Lily now. He knew he had a daughter. And despite what he had done to her, despite the pain he had caused, Sophia knew that Lily deserved the chance to know her father, if he proved worthy of knowing her. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed in their hotel room, her daughter asked the question Sophia had been dreading. "Mama, that man today, Adrian, he looked at me funny. Like he knew me." Sophia smoothed Lily's dark hair away from her face, looking into those green eyes that were so achingly familiar. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Like how Dr. Morrison looks at me sometimes. Like he's happy and sad at the same time." Sophia's heart clenched. Lily was far too perceptive for her own good. "Sometimes adults have complicated feelings," she said carefully. "But you don't need to worry about that, okay? You're safe and loved, and that's all that matters." Lily nodded, accepting the explanation the way children do. But as Sophia kissed her goodnight and turned off the light, she knew that their simple life in Millbrook was about to become much more complicated. Adrian Stone had found them. And now she would have to decide whether the man who had broken her heart 3 years ago deserved a chance to know the beautiful daughter he had never known existed. The next morning, Sophia wasn't surprised to find Adrian waiting in the hotel lobby when she came down for breakfast. He was sitting in one of the leather chairs near the elevators, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of his usual expensive suits. He looked like he hadn't slept, and when he saw her approaching with Lily, he stood up so quickly he nearly knocked over his coffee cup. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said immediately, holding up his hands in a peaceful gesture. I need to understand." Sophia looked at him for a long moment, then down at Lily, who was watching the interaction with curious 3-year-old eyes. She had known this moment would come eventually. Part of her had been preparing for it since the day Lily was born. "Lily, honey, why don't you go pick out what you want for breakfast from that display case over there?" Sophia pointed to the hotel's continental breakfast setup across the lobby. "I need to talk to this man for a minute." "Can I have a muffin?" Lily asked hopefully. "You can have whatever you want," Sophia said, which made Lily's face light up with excitement as she skipped away. When they were alone, Adrian looked at Sophia with an expression she had never seen on his face before, vulnerable, almost pleading. "Is she mine?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Sophia said simply. There was no point in lying, not when the resemblance was so obvious. Adrian closed his eyes and took a shaky breath. "Why didn't you tell me?" "When?" Sophia asked, her voice sharp with old pain. "When you threw me out of your apartment and called our marriage a mistake. When your lawyer threatened me with legal action if I ever contacted you again. When exactly was I supposed to mention that I was pregnant?" Adrian started, then stopped. "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," Sophia corrected. "You made it very clear that you wanted me out of your life completely. Mission accomplished." Adrian ran his hands through his hair, a gesture she remembered from their married days when he was frustrated or overwhelmed. "I was an idiot," he said quietly. "I was scared and I listened to people who convinced me that what we had wasn't real. I've regretted it every day since." "Have you?" Sophia asked skeptically. "Because from what I've read in the business papers, you've been doing just fine without me." "No," Adrian said firmly. "I haven't been fine at all. My business is falling apart, I can't sleep, I can't focus on anything. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me, and I've been paying for it ever since." Sophia felt a flicker of the old sympathy she used to feel for him, but she pushed it down. She couldn't afford to be soft-hearted now. She had Lily to protect. That's not my problem anymore, she said. I built a new life, Adrian. A good life. We don't need you. But she's my daughter, Adrian said, his voice breaking slightly on the word daughter. I have a child and I didn't even know she existed. Don't you think I deserve a chance to know her? Sophia looked over at Lily, who was carefully examining each muffin in the display case with the serious concentration she brought to all her decisions. Deserve? She repeated. What do you deserve, Adrian? You deserve what you chose, a life without us. I was wrong, Adrian said desperately. I know I was wrong. But please don't punish Lily for my mistakes. She deserves to know her father. Her father? Sophia's voice rose slightly, drawing looks from other hotel guests. She lowered it again, mindful of Lily nearby. You want to be her father now? Where were you when I was throwing up every morning for 4 months? Where were you when I was in labor for 12 hours with no one but strangers to help me? Where were you when she had colic and cried for 3 hours every night for 6 weeks? Each question hit Adrian like a physical blow. Sophia could see him flinching, could see the guilt and regret written across his face. I know I can't make up for that, he said quietly. But I can be here now. I can be part of her life going forward. Can you? Sophia challenged. Because being a parent isn't something you do when it's convenient, Adrian. It's not a business deal you can negotiate. It's getting up at 3 in the morning when she has nightmares. It's staying home when she's sick instead of going to important meetings. It's putting her needs before your own, every single day for the rest of your life. I understand that, Adrian said. Do you? Because 3 years ago, you couldn't even put our marriage before your business relationships. You couldn't even put love before your mother's approval. Adrian's face went pale. My mother had nothing to do with this. Really? Sophia asked. Because I remember a very different story. I remember you getting phone calls that made you cold and distant. I remember you suddenly deciding our marriage was a mistake right after you had dinner with your parents. Adrian looked away and Sophia knew she had hit the truth. She was trying to protect me, he said weakly. Protect you from what? Sophia asked. From being happy? From having a real relationship instead of a business arrangement. Before Adrian could answer, Lily came skipping back over, holding a chocolate chip muffin almost as big as her head. Mama, I picked this one. Can we sit by the big windows? Sophia forced a smile for her daughter. Of course, sweetheart. Let's find a nice table. As they walked to a table near the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the busy New York street, Adrian followed at a respectful distance. Sophia could feel him watching Lily's every movement, cataloging the way she talked and walked and smiled. Can the man sit with us? Lily asked as Sophia helped her into a chair. He looked sad. Sophia's heart clenched at her daughter's natural compassion. Even at 3 years old, Lily hated to see anyone unhappy. It was one of her most beautiful qualities and also one that worried Sophia the most. She didn't want her daughter to learn the hard way that not everyone deserved kindness. If you want him to, Sophia said carefully, knowing she couldn't make this decision for Lily. Okay, Lily said, turning to Adrian with a bright smile. You can sit with us, but you have to share my muffin because it's really big. Adrian looked like he might cry. That's very generous of you, he said, his voice thick with emotion as he sat down across from them. Mama says sharing is important, Lily explained, breaking off a piece of muffin and offering it to Adrian. What kind of work do you do? I run a company, Adrian said, accepting the piece of muffin like it was precious. We help other businesses solve problems. That sounds important, Lily said seriously. Mama helps people too. She makes cakes for weddings and birthdays and when people are sad and need something sweet. Adrian looked at Sophia with something like wonder. That sounds like the perfect job. It is, Lily agreed. And Mama is teaching me how to bake. I'm really good at measuring flour, but I'm not allowed to use the big mixer yet because I'm still little. Maybe when you're bigger, Adrian said softly. That's what Mama says. Do you have any kids? The question hung in the air like a live wire. Sophia held her breath, wondering how Adrian would answer. Adrian glanced at Sophia then back at Lily. I'm hoping to spend more time with children soon. It was a diplomatic answer, but Sophia could see the hunger in his eyes as he looked at Lily. He was already falling in love with her, she realized. How could he not? Lily was everything bright and beautiful and innocent in the world. That's good, Lily said. Kids are fun. Do you know any games? For the next hour, Sophia watched in amazement as Adrian transformed from the cold, distant businessman she remembered into someone she had never seen before. He listened to Lily's chatter about her favorite books and her pet cat and her best friend Emma, named after the bakery owner. He answered her endless questions with patience and genuine interest. He even got down on the floor to help her build a castle out of sugar packets when she got bored sitting at the table. "You're different with her," Sophia observed when Lily went to the bathroom. "She's amazing," Adrian said, his eyes following Lily's path across the lobby. "She's so smart and funny and kind. She's—" He paused, searching for words. "She's perfect." "She is," Sophia agreed. "And she's mine. I've protected her for 3 years and I'll keep protecting her." "I'm not here to take her away from you," Adrian said quickly. "I just want to be part of her life. I want to know her. And when you get bored, when being a father becomes inconvenient, what happens to her then?" Adrian met her eyes directly. "That won't happen. How can you be sure? You walked away from me easily enough." "That was different," Adrian said. "That was—" He struggled with the words. "I was a coward. I was scared of how much I loved you, scared of how much power you had to hurt me. I convinced myself that it was better to end things before you figured out that I wasn't worth loving." Sophia stared at him. "You think I would have left you?" "Everyone always does," Adrian said quietly. "My birth parents, the foster families, even the Stones, they love me, but it's conditional love. It depends on me being successful, being perfect. You were the first person who seemed to love me just for who I was, and that terrified me. So you decided to leave me before I could leave you? Something like that." Adrian looked ashamed. "I know how stupid that sounds now." Lily came bouncing back to the table, interrupting their conversation. "Mama, can we go see the big museum today? You promised." Sophia looked at Adrian, who was watching them with such longing it made her chest ache. "I suppose we could do that," she said slowly. "Can Adrian come with us?" Lily asked. "I bet he's never seen all the pretty paintings." Sophia wanted to say no. Spending the day with Adrian felt dangerous, like opening a door she had worked so hard to keep closed. But looking at Lily's hopeful face, she found herself nodding. "If he wants to," she said. "I would love to," Adrian said immediately. And so Sophia found herself walking through the Metropolitan Museum with the father of her child and the man who had broken her heart, watching him discover the daughter he had never known existed. Adrian was gentle with Lily, letting her set the pace as they wandered through the halls. He bought her a small sketch pad in the gift shop and helped her draw pictures of her favorite paintings. In the Egyptian wing, Lily became fascinated with a sarcophagus covered in hieroglyphs. "What do all those pictures mean?" she asked. "They're telling a story," Adrian explained, kneeling down to her level. "The ancient Egyptians used pictures instead of letters to write." "Like a code?" Lily's eyes lit up with excitement. "Exactly like a code. And this one is telling the story of a pharaoh who built great monuments and was loved by his people." Sophia watched them together, father and daughter bonding over ancient history, and felt her carefully constructed walls start to crumble. This was what she had always imagined when she was pregnant, Adrian kneeling beside their child, sharing his knowledge and wonder about the world. But she had to remember that imagination wasn't reality. Adrian had made his choice 3 years ago, and it hadn't included them. As they walked through the sculpture garden, Lily suddenly turned to Adrian with the directness that only children possessed. "Are you my daddy?" The question stopped all 3 of them in their tracks. Sophia felt her heart racing as she waited for Adrian's response. Adrian looked at Sophia, clearly asking permission. When she gave him a small nod, he turned back to Lily. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." "I thought so," Lily said matter-of-factly. "You have the same eyes as me. And you smell like Mama's soap." Adrian looked confused. "Your Mama's soap?" "The fancy soap she uses for special days. It smells expensive." Despite everything, Sophia found herself smiling. Trust Lily to reduce the complexity of their situation to something as simple as expensive soap. "So where have you been?" Lily asked, settling onto a bench with the casual expectation that Adrian would sit beside her. "I've been working," Adrian said carefully. "I didn't know about you until yesterday." "Didn't Mama tell you?" Lily looked between them with confusion. "It's complicated, sweetheart," Sophia said, sitting on Lily's other side. "Because you and Daddy don't love each other anymore?" The innocent question hit both adults like a physical blow. Sophia struggled to find an appropriate answer. "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements," she said finally. "But that doesn't mean we don't both love you very much." "Good," Lily said with satisfaction. "Because I love you both too. Even if Daddy does smell like expensive soap." That evening, after Lily had fallen asleep in their hotel room, Sophia met Adrian in the lobby bar. She had agreed to this conversation, but only because she needed to set clear boundaries about his role in Lily's life. "She's incredible," Adrian said as soon as Sophia sat down. I can't believe I have a daughter like that." "You do," Sophia said. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I want to be her father," Adrian said immediately. "I want to be part of her life, help raise her, support her." "Support her how? With money? Because that's not what she needs from you." "No, not money." "Well, yes, I want to help financially too, but that's not what I mean. I want to know her favorite bedtime story and what makes her laugh. I want to help her with homework and teach her to ride a bike. I want to be there for school plays and birthday parties and all the things I've already missed." Sophia studied his face, looking for any sign that this was just another business negotiation to him. But all she saw was raw honesty and a desperate hope that she might give him a chance. "You hurt me, Adrian," she said quietly. "You destroyed me. I won't let you do that to her." "I won't," he promised. "I swear to you, I will never hurt her the way I hurt you." "How can I trust that? How can I trust anything you say after what you did?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment, staring into his untouched drink. "You can't," he said finally. "I have to earn that trust back. I know that." "Yes, you do. And it's going to take time. A lot of time." "I have time," Adrian said immediately. "I have all the time in the world." Sophia made a decision that surprised her. "We're going back to Millbrook tomorrow. If you want to be part of Lily's life, you can visit. But you follow my rules. You don't disrupt her routine, you don't make promises you can't keep, and if I decide you're not good for her, you walk away. No lawyers, no custody battles, no using your money and power to force your way into her life." "Agreed," Adrian said without hesitation. "And Adrian?" Sophia looked at him directly. "This is about Lily, not about us. Whatever we had is over. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago, and I won't be hurt by you again." Adrian nodded, though something flickered in his eyes. "I understand." But as Sophia walked back to her room, she wondered if either of them really understood what they were getting into. Letting Adrian into Lily's life meant letting him back into hers, at least partially. And despite all her walls and protection, despite all the pain he had caused her, part of her heart still recognized him as the man she had once loved with everything she had. That part of her heart was the most dangerous part of all. Adrian Stone had never felt more nervous in his life than he did standing on the front porch of a small bakery in Millbrook, Maine, holding a bouquet of wildflowers and a teddy bear that cost more than most people spent on groceries in a month. Through the large front windows, he could see Sophia moving around behind the counter, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, flour dusting her black apron. It had been a week since their encounter in New York, and this was his first visit to see Lily in her own environment. He had driven up from the city early that morning, his expensive car looking completely out of place on the tree-lined main street of the small coastal town. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and the warm smell of fresh bread and cinnamon rolls enveloped him. Sweet Dreams Bakery was everything he had imagined from Sophia's descriptions, cozy and welcoming, with mismatched chairs around small tables and local artwork covering the walls. It felt like home in a way his penthouse apartment never had. "Adrian?" Lily came running from behind the counter, her face lighting up with genuine excitement. "Mama said you were coming today." Adrian knelt down as she launched herself into his arms, her small body warm and solid against his chest. For a moment he couldn't speak around the lump in his throat. This was his daughter and she was happy to see him. "I brought you something," he said, offering her the teddy bear. Lily's eyes went wide as she took the enormous stuffed animal. "He's so soft. What's his name?" "I thought you could name him," Adrian said. "Muffin," Lily said immediately. "Because he's brown like chocolate chip muffins." "Muffin is a perfect name," Adrian agreed, making a mental note to remember every detail of this moment. "Lily, why don't you show Adrian around while I finish this batch of cookies?" Sophia called from the kitchen, her tone polite but distant. For the next hour, Lily gave Adrian a complete tour of her world. She showed him her favorite corner of the bakery where she liked to color, the step stool she used to help measure ingredients, and the back garden where she and Sophia grew herbs for their recipes. She chattered constantly, telling him about her friends at daycare, her favorite books, and her dream of someday making cakes as beautiful as her mother's. "And this is Mr. Whiskers," she said, introducing him to a fat orange cat who was sunning himself on the back steps. "He's very old and very lazy, but he gives the best hugs." Adrian found himself genuinely enchanted by his daughter's enthusiasm for everything in her small world. She found wonder in the simplest things, the way sunlight made patterns through the leaves, the sound of waves crashing against the rocks at the nearby beach, the way flour felt between her fingers when she helped with baking. "Do you want to help me make cookies?" Lily asked as they came back inside. "Mama says I'm the best helper in the whole bakery." "I would love to," Adrian said, though he had never baked anything in his life. Sophia emerged from the kitchen carrying a tray of fresh chocolate chip cookies. "Lily, sweetheart, Adrian is our guest. He doesn't need to work." "But I want to help," Adrian said quickly. "If that's okay with you." Sophia studied his face for a moment, clearly trying to determine if this was genuine interest or just an act to impress her. "All right," she said finally. "But you'll need to follow Lily's instructions. She takes baking very seriously." And she did. For the next 2 hours, 3-year-old Lily directed Adrian through the process of making sugar cookies with the confidence of a seasoned chef. She showed him how to measure flour properly, how to cream butter and sugar, and the correct way to roll out dough. "You have to be gentle," she explained as Adrian struggled with the rolling pin. "Cookies don't like it when you're rough with them." "I'll remember that," Adrian said solemnly, earning a giggle from his daughter. Sophia watched them from across the kitchen, occasionally offering guidance but mostly letting Lily take the lead. Adrian could feel her eyes on him, evaluating, judging, waiting for him to lose patience or get bored with the mundane task of baking cookies with a 3-year-old. But he didn't get bored. If anything, he was amazed by how much he enjoyed this simple domestic activity. He had spent years in high-stakes business meetings, negotiating million-dollar deals, but nothing had ever felt as important as making sure he rolled the cookie dough to exactly the thickness Lily deemed acceptable. "These are the best cookies ever," Lily declared when they finally pulled the finished tray from the oven. "Can we make more tomorrow?" "We'll see," Sophia said diplomatically. "Adrian might be busy tomorrow." "Actually," Adrian said, surprising himself, "I was hoping I could stay in town for a few days. If that's okay with both of you." Sophia's expression was guarded. "Where would you stay? This isn't exactly a tourist destination." "There's a bed and breakfast about a mile down the road," Adrian said. "I passed it on the way in. It looked nice." "Mrs. Henderson's place," Lily said immediately. "She makes the best pancakes. And she has 3 cats." "Then that sounds perfect," Adrian said. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed in the apartment above the bakery, Sophia walked Adrian to his car. The summer evening was warm and peaceful, with the sound of ocean waves in the distance and the smell of pine trees carried on the gentle breeze. "She likes you," Sophia said quietly. "I like her too," Adrian replied. "She's amazing, Sophia. You've done an incredible job raising her." "I had help," Sophia said. "Emma, Dr. Morrison, the whole town really. It takes a village." "I'd like to be part of that village," Adrian said. "If you'll let me." Sophia stopped walking and turned to face him. "What does that mean exactly? Because I need to know what you're really doing here, Adrian. Are you trying to ease your conscience? Are you bored with your life in New York? Or do you genuinely want to be Lily's father?" "I want to be her father," Adrian said without hesitation. "I know I have no right to ask for that chance, but I'm asking anyway." "Being a father isn't something you can do part-time," Sophia warned. "It's not a weekend hobby or a way to feel better about yourself. It's a commitment that lasts forever." "I understand that. Do you? Because what happens when your mother finds out about Lily? What happens when your business associates think having a daughter in a small town is bad for your image? What happens when the novelty wears off and you remember why you threw us away in the first place?" Adrian felt each question like a physical blow, but he forced himself to meet Sophia's eyes. "My mother doesn't control my life anymore. And anyone who has a problem with my daughter isn't someone I want in my life anyway." "Your mother controlled your life enough to make you divorce me," Sophia pointed out. "That was different. I was different then. Weaker." Adrian ran his hands through his hair. "I know you have no reason to believe me, but I've changed, Sophia. Losing you, losing both of you, broke something in me. I realized that all the success in the world doesn't mean anything if you don't have people to share it with." "Pretty words," Sophia said. "But I need more than words." "Then let me prove it to you. Let me show you that I'm serious about this." "How?" Adrian took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to say would change everything. "I want to move here. To Millbrook. I want to be close to Lily, to be part of her daily life instead of just a weekend visitor." Sophia stared at him in shock. "Move here? What about your business? Your life in New York?" "I can run my business from anywhere. And my life in New York." He shrugged. "It turns out it wasn't much of a life at all. You can't just uproot your entire existence because you feel guilty about abandoning your daughter, Sophia protested. I'm not doing it because I feel guilty, Adrian said. I'm doing it because I love her. I've loved her since the moment I saw her in that hotel food court, and I want to spend every day I have left making up for the 3 years I missed. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, studying his face in the fading light. If you do this, she said finally, if you really move here and become part of Lily's life, there's no going back. You can't change your mind in 6 months and disappear again. She'll be counting on you. I won't disappoint her, Adrian promised. You better not, Sophia said fiercely. Because if you hurt my daughter, I will make you regret it for the rest of your life. The threat should have intimidated him, but instead Adrian felt a surge of admiration for this fierce, protective woman who had once been his wife. She had become everything he had always known she could be: strong, successful, independent. She didn't need him anymore, which somehow made his desire to be part of her and Lily's life even stronger. Over the next 3 days, Adrian threw himself into proving that he was serious about becoming part of Lily's world. He helped in the bakery, learning to frost cupcakes and package orders. He read bedtime stories and played endless games of hide and seek. He attended a daycare picnic where he met Lily's friends and their parents, enduring the curious stares and whispered questions about who exactly this well-dressed stranger was. He's my daddy, Lily announced proudly to anyone who would listen. He's learning how to make cookies. Adrian also spent time getting to know the town that had become Sophia and Lily's home. He walked the beach where Lily collected shells, visited the small library where she checked out picture books, and ate lunch at the diner where everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. Dr. Morrison was particularly interesting to meet. The older man was clearly protective of both Sophia and Lily, and he studied Adrian with the careful attention of someone evaluating a potential threat. Sophia and Lily are very special to this community, Dr. Morrison said when they happened to meet at the hardware store. We all care about them very much. I can see that, Adrian replied. And I appreciate that they've had so much support. They didn't need support because they were weak, Dr. Morrison continued pointedly. They needed it because life had been unfair to them. Sophia has worked incredibly hard to build what she has here. I know, Adrian said. I'm not here to take that away from her. Good. Because if you hurt either of them, you'll have more than just Sophia to answer to. It was a polite threat, but a threat nonetheless. Adrian found himself respecting the doctor's protectiveness, even as he hoped to prove that he deserved to be part of the circle of people who cared about his daughter. On his last evening in town, Adrian found himself alone with Sophia after Lily had fallen asleep. They sat on the back steps of the bakery watching fireflies dance in the garden. I meant what I said about moving here, Adrian said quietly. I know you did, Sophia replied. That's what scares me. Why does it scare you? Because. Sophia struggled with the words. Because part of me wants to believe you've really changed. Part of me wants to trust you again. And that's dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Because I loved you once, Adrian. I loved you with everything I had, and when you threw that away, it nearly destroyed me. I can't go through that again. You won't have to, Adrian said. I'm not asking you to love me again, Sophia. I'm just asking you to let me love our daughter. But even as he said the words, Adrian knew they weren't entirely true. He did want Sophia to love him again. He wanted to rebuild what they had lost, to become the family he had never allowed them to be. But he also knew that earning her trust back would take time, patience, and proof that he had truly changed. I'll look for a house to rent, he said. Something small, nothing too disruptive to the town's character. The Morrison cottage might be available, Sophia said reluctantly. It's been empty since Dr. Morrison's sister moved to Florida. It's about 10 minutes from here, close enough for you to see Lily regularly but far enough away that we're not living in each other's pockets. That sounds perfect, Adrian said. As he drove back to New York the next morning, leaving behind the woman he still loved and the daughter he was just getting to know, Adrian felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. It wouldn't be easy rebuilding his life around what Lily needed instead of what his business demanded. It wouldn't be easy earning back Sophia's trust or proving to a whole town that he deserved to be part of their community. But for the first time in 3 years, Adrian had a purpose that went beyond profit margins and quarterly reports. He had a reason to become the man he had always wanted to be instead of the man he thought he had to be. He had a daughter who called him daddy and a chance to be the father she deserved. It was going to be enough. It had to be. 2 months after Adrian's first visit to Millbrook, he had settled into a routine that surprised everyone, including himself. He had rented the Morrison cottage, a small but charming house with a view of the harbor, and had somehow managed to run Stone Enterprises remotely while spending his days learning to be a father. The townspeople had gradually warmed to him, particularly after he started volunteering at the community center and donated money to repair the town's playground. Lily adored having him nearby, and Adrian discovered that reading bedtime stories and teaching a 3-year-old to skip stones could be more satisfying than closing million-dollar deals. But if Adrian had hoped that his mother would eventually accept his new life choices, he was quickly proven wrong. Victoria Stone arrived in Millbrook on a gray October morning, stepping out of a black town car like a storm cloud descending on the peaceful little town. She was dressed in an expensive suit that cost more than most people in Millbrook made in a month, and her expression made it clear that she found everything about the place distasteful. Adrian was in the bakery helping Lily frost cupcakes for her friend's birthday party when his mother walked through the front door. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as Victoria's cold gaze swept over the cozy interior before landing on her son, who was covered in flour and icing. "Adrian," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "We need to talk." Lily looked up from her cupcake decorating with curious eyes. "Who's that lady, Daddy?" "That's my mother," Adrian said, forcing his voice to remain calm. "Lily, this is your grandmother, Victoria?" Victoria's gaze moved to Lily for the first time, and Adrian watched his mother's expression shift from disdain to shock as she took in the unmistakable family resemblance. Lily had Adrian's eyes, his jawline, his thick dark hair. There was no denying that this child was a Stone. "Hello," Lily said politely, the way Sophia had taught her to greet adults. "Do you want to help us make cupcakes? We're making them for my friend Tommy's birthday." No," Victoria said, clearly struggling to process the situation. "I need to speak with your father." Sophia emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Adrian watched as his mother's eyes narrowed, taking in every detail of the woman who had once been her daughter-in-law. "Mrs. Stone," Sophia said coolly. "What an unexpected surprise." "I'm sure it is," Victoria replied, her tone arctic. "Adrian, I said we need to talk. Privately. Anything you need to say to me you can say in front of Sophia," Adrian said, moving protectively closer to Lily. "Fine." Victoria's voice was clipped, professional. "Then let me be direct. I've come to bring you home, Adrian. This experiment has gone on long enough." "This isn't an experiment," Adrian said firmly. "This is my life." "This is you running away from your responsibilities," Victoria shot back. "While you've been playing house in this quaint little town, Stone Enterprises has been hemorrhaging money. The Morrison deal fell through, the Singapore project is on hold, and 3 of our biggest clients have expressed concerns about the company's leadership." Adrian felt a stab of guilt. He had been monitoring his business from Millbrook, but he hadn't been giving it his full attention. For the first time in his adult life, something else had been more important than work. "I can handle the business from here," he said. "Can you?" "Because our competitors certainly don't think so. They're calling you Adrian Stone, the billionaire who gave up his empire for a small-town fantasy." "I don't care what they call me." "Well, you should care about what they're doing to your company while you're distracted." Victoria pulled out her phone and showed him a news article. "Blackwater Industries just acquired 2 contracts that should have been ours. They're telling clients that Stone Enterprises is no longer a serious player in the market." Adrian scanned the article, his jaw tightening. Blackwater was run by Marcus Caldwell, a man who had been trying to destroy Adrian's business for years. If Marcus sensed weakness, he would exploit it ruthlessly. "Daddy, are you okay?" Lily asked, noticing the tension in the room. "You look sad." Adrian forced a smile for his daughter. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Why don't you go show Mama your cupcakes?" Sophia immediately moved to distract Lily, but Adrian could see the worry in her eyes. She understood the implications of what Victoria was saying, even if she didn't know the details. "There's more," Victoria continued once Lily was out of earshot. "Isabella Worthington has agreed to merge her family's investment firm with Stone Enterprises. It would stabilize our finances and send a strong message to the market that we're still a force to be reckoned with." "In exchange for what?" Adrian asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "A marriage, of course. Isabella has been very patient, waiting for you to come to your senses. She's willing to overlook this lapse in judgment, if you end this situation cleanly." "This situation?" Adrian's voice was dangerously quiet. "You mean my daughter?" "I mean this fantasy you've been living," Victoria snapped. "You have responsibilities, Adrian. To your company, to your employees, to the family name. You can't throw all of that away for a child who was born from a mistake. Don't you ever call my daughter a mistake, Adrian said, his voice low and threatening. But the damage was done. Sophia had heard every word, and when Adrian looked at her, he saw the old hurt reflected in her eyes. She was remembering another time when his family had convinced him that their relationship was a mistake, another time when business had been more important than love. Sophia, he began, but she shook her head. Lily, she called. Come on, sweetheart. We need to get these cupcakes to Tommy's party. But I want to finish decorating, Lily protested. We'll finish them in the car, Sophia said firmly, already gathering up the cupcakes in her purse. Are you coming to the party, Daddy? Lily asked hopefully. Adrian looked between his daughter's expectant face and his mother's cold stare. I'll try to make it later, okay? Lily's face fell slightly, but she nodded. As Sophia hurried her toward the door, Lily turned back to Victoria. It was nice to meet you, Grandma, she said with the automatic politeness of a well-raised child. Maybe next time you can help us make cupcakes. Victoria's expression softened for just a moment as she looked at her granddaughter. Perhaps, she said quietly. After they left, Adrian turned to face his mother's wrath. She's lovely, Victoria admitted reluctantly. The child, I mean. She has the stone intelligence, I can see that. Her name is Lily, Adrian said. And yes, she's incredible. Which makes this situation even more complicated, Victoria continued. You can't just abandon her, but you also can't sacrifice everything you've built for a domestic fantasy. It's not a fantasy. It's real life. It's the life I want. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're hiding from the real world in a place where you can pretend to be someone you're not. Adrian wanted to argue, but something about his mother's words struck uncomfortably close to home. Was he hiding? Was his new life in Millbrook just another way of avoiding the difficult choices he needed to make? There's a solution, Victoria said, clearly sensing his uncertainty. Isabella's family has connections with the best family law attorneys in the country. We can arrange for generous child support, visitation rights that work with your business schedule, maybe even a trust fund that will ensure Lily's future is secure. You're talking about custody arrangements, Adrian said slowly. I'm talking about being realistic. You can be part of your daughter's life without sacrificing everything you've worked for. You can have both. What about Sophia? Victoria's expression hardened again. What about her? She's managed perfectly well without you for 3 years. She has her little bakery, her small-town life. She doesn't need you disrupting that. But Lily needs me. Lily needs financial security and a father who can provide for her future. She doesn't need you to give up your entire life and move to this backwater town. Adrian spent the rest of the day torn between conflicting loyalties. His mother wasn't entirely wrong, his business was suffering, and if he lost Stone Enterprises he would lose the ability to provide for Lily's future. But the thought of returning to his old life, of becoming a weekend father who saw his daughter on a schedule determined by lawyers, made him feel physically sick. That evening he went to Sophia's apartment above the bakery, hoping to explain his mother's visit and reassure her that nothing had changed. But Sophia's expression when she opened the door told him that everything had changed. She's finally asleep, Sophia said quietly, stepping out onto the small balcony so they wouldn't wake Lily. She kept asking why you didn't come to the party. I'm sorry. My mother and I needed to finish our conversation. Did you? Finish it, I mean. Adrian hesitated, and that hesitation told Sophia everything she needed to know. She wants you to come back to New York, Sophia said. It wasn't a question. She thinks my business is in trouble because I've been distracted, Adrian admitted. And is it? In trouble? Adrian ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Sophia recognized from their married days when he was stressed. Some deals have fallen through. We've lost a few clients. But that happens in business. How bad is it, Adrian? Bad enough that my mother flew here personally to drag me back to New York, he said quietly. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the mild evening. And the woman she mentioned? Isabella? My ex-fiancée. Our families want us to merge our businesses. Through marriage. It's just a business arrangement, Adrian said quickly. It's not what I want. Isn't it? Sophia turned to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Because it sounds exactly like the kind of logical, practical decision you're good at making. Sacrifice personal happiness for business success. It's what you did 3 years ago. That was different. Was it? Because from where I'm standing it looks exactly the same. The moment things get complicated, The moment you have to choose between your business and your family, you start looking for the exit. That's not what I'm doing, Adrian protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Then what are you doing? Because Lily asked me tonight why you looked so sad, why you didn't come to Tommy's party like you promised. What am I supposed to tell her? Adrian felt the weight of his daughter's disappointment like a physical blow. I'm trying to figure out how to balance everything. There shouldn't be a balance, Sophia said fiercely. When you become a parent, your child comes first. Always. Before your business, before your mother's expectations, before everything else. I know that, Adrian said. But if I lose my business, I lose my ability to provide for her. She doesn't need your money, Adrian. She needs her father. She needs someone who keeps his promises and shows up when he says he will. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Finally, Sophia spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I should have known this would happen. I should have known that the moment your old life called you back, you'd start questioning this one. Sophia, that's not. Yes, it is, she interrupted. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe it's better that Lily learns now that she can't count on you, rather than after she's gotten even more attached. Don't say that. I'm not abandoning her. Aren't you? Because that's what it sounds like. You're going to go back to New York, marry your suitable ex-fiancé, and be a weekend father who sends expensive presents and visits when it's convenient. I never said that. You didn't have to. I can see it in your eyes, Adrian. You're already gone. Sophia turned to go back inside, but Adrian caught her arm gently. What if I could have both? He asked desperately. What if I could find a way to save my business and still be here for Lily? How? Sophia asked. Your mother made it pretty clear that you can't run a major corporation from a small town in Maine. Maybe I don't need to run a major corporation. Maybe I could sell Stone Enterprises, use the money to start something smaller, something I could manage from here. Sophia studied his face in the dim light from the apartment windows. You would do that? Give up everything you built? I would do anything for our daughter, Adrian said, and for a moment Sophia almost believed him. But then she remembered the look in his eyes when his mother had talked about his failing business, the way his whole body had tensed when she mentioned his competitors circling like vultures. Adrian Stone was a man who had built his identity around success and power. Could he really give that up even for Lily? Think about it, Sophia said finally. Really think about it. Because if you make this choice, if you promise Lily that you're going to stay, there's no changing your mind later. She's already lost one parent. I won't let her lose another. The next morning, Adrian found himself walking along the beach where he and Lily often collected shells together. The October air was crisp, and the waves crashed against the rocky shore with a rhythm that usually calmed him. But today nothing could quiet the turmoil in his mind. His phone buzzed constantly with calls from his office, updates on deals falling through and competitors gaining ground. Margaret Chin had texted him 3 times about an emergency board meeting scheduled for the following day. His absence was becoming impossible to ignore. But when he thought about leaving Millbrook, about going back to his sterile penthouse and his 70-hour work weeks, he felt physically sick. The life he had built here might be simple, but it was real in a way his old life had never been. When Lily hugged him goodnight, when she proudly showed him a drawing she had made, when she asked him to read just one more bedtime story, those moments meant more to him than any business triumph ever had. His phone rang again, and this time it was Isabella Worthington. Adrian. Her cultured voice was exactly as he remembered, beautiful, polished, and completely without warmth. Your mother told me about your situation. I want you to know that I'm prepared to be very understanding about your past indiscretions. My daughter isn't an indiscretion, Isabella. Of course not. Children are always a blessing, regardless of the circumstances of their birth. I'm sure we can work out very reasonable visitation arrangements that won't interfere with our social obligations. Visitation arrangements? Well, naturally the child will need to stay with her mother. A small town like that is probably better for raising children anyway, away from all the pressures of city life. Adrian realized that Isabella saw Lily exactly the way his mother did, as a complication to be managed rather than a daughter to be loved. The idea of these two women planning his daughter's life like she was a business asset made his blood run cold. I have to go, he said abruptly. Adrian, wait. We should discuss the merger terms. Daddy's lawyers have prepared. Adrian hung up without listening to the rest. He stood on the beach for a long time, watching the waves and thinking about the man he had been versus the man he wanted to become. When he finally returned to town, he found Lily playing in the small park across from the bakery while Sophia watched from a nearby bench. His daughter was on the swing set, pumping her legs with fierce determination as she tried to swing higher than the older kids. "Look, Daddy," she called when she saw him. "I can swing by myself now." "That's amazing, sweetheart," Adrian called back, settling onto the bench next to Sophia. "She's been practicing all week," Sophia said without looking at him. "She wanted to show you before." "Before what?" "Before you leave." Sophia's voice was matter-of-fact, but Adrian could hear the pain underneath. "You are leaving, aren't you?" Adrian watched his daughter on the swings, her dark hair flying behind her, her face lit up with pure joy at this simple accomplishment. She had inherited his determination, but unlike him, she wasn't afraid to reach for what would make her happy. "Daddy, push me," Lily called, and Adrian stood up to help her swing even higher. As he pushed the swing, feeling Lily's laughter bubble up in response to each gentle push, Adrian made his decision. It wasn't the practical choice or the profitable choice, but it was the right choice. He was going to fight for this life he had found in Millbrook. He was going to fight for his daughter, for the chance to be the father she deserved, for the possibility of a future with the woman he had never stopped loving. But first, he was going to have to face the consequences of the business he was about to abandon and the powerful people who wouldn't forgive him for choosing love over profit. The war for his soul was about to begin, and this time, Adrian was determined to be on the right side. The emergency board meeting was exactly as brutal as Adrian had expected. He sat at the head of the conference table in Stone Enterprises' main boardroom, facing 12 of the most powerful business leaders in New York, all of whom looked like they were attending his funeral. "The numbers don't lie, Adrian," said Harrison Webb, the chairman of the board and one of Adrian's oldest business associates. "We've lost 40% of our major contracts in the past 6 months. Our stock price has dropped 23%. 3 competitors have made hostile takeover bids. We can recover," Adrian said, though his words sounded hollow even to him. "How?" Margaret Chin spread out financial reports across the table. "We're hemorrhaging clients because our CEO has been playing house in a small town instead of running his company." "That's enough," Adrian said sharply, but Margaret wasn't finished. "The Morrison account said they couldn't trust a company whose leadership wasn't committed to excellence. The Hartwell Group specifically mentioned concerns about your personal distractions affecting your business judgment." Each word hit Adrian like a physical blow. He had built Stone Enterprises from nothing, had spent 15 years making it one of the most respected companies in the industry. Watching it crumble because he had chosen to be a father felt like watching his life's work turn to ash. "There is a solution," Harrison said carefully. "The Worthington merger could stabilize our finances and restore confidence in the company. Isabella's family is prepared to invest $200 million in exchange for a controlling interest and certain assurances about the company's leadership." "Meaning they want me to marry Isabella and forget about my personal life," Adrian said flatly. "Meaning they want stability and focus," Harrison corrected. "Your daughter could still be part of your life, Adrian. Just not at the expense of your professional responsibilities." Adrian thought about Lily on the swings, about the way her face lit up when he read her bedtime stories, about the simple pleasure of helping her bake cookies. Could he really reduce his relationship with his daughter to scheduled visits and birthday presents? "I need time to think," he said finally. "Time is the one thing we don't have," Margaret warned. "Blackwater Industries is circling like sharks. If we don't stabilize soon, there won't be a company left to save." Adrian spent the rest of the day walking through New York City, trying to reconcile the man he had been with the man he wanted to become. The city that had once felt like his kingdom now seemed cold and impersonal. The people rushing past on the sidewalks looked stressed and unhappy, chasing success that never seemed to satisfy them. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Daddy, I made you a picture. Mama says you're at work, but I hope you come home soon." Attached was a photo of a crayon drawing showing 3 stick figures, a tall one labeled Daddy, a medium one labeled Mama, and a small one labeled Me. They were standing in front of a house with a big garden and what looked like a rainbow overhead. At the bottom, in Sophia's handwriting, were the words, "My Family," apparently Lily's title for her artwork. Adrian stared at the picture for a long time, feeling his chest tighten with emotion. In his daughter's innocent view of the world, they were already a family. She didn't understand the complex business pressures or family expectations that were pulling him in different directions. She just knew that she loved her daddy and wanted him to come home. That evening, Adrian found himself standing outside the Metropolitan Museum, remembering the night he had first met Sophia. It felt like a lifetime ago, back when he thought love was a luxury he couldn't afford and family was just another word for obligation. His phone rang and he was surprised to see Dr. Morrison's name on the caller ID. Adrian? I hope you don't mind me calling. Sophia gave me your number in case there was ever an emergency with Lily. Is everything okay? Adrian asked immediately, his heart racing. Lily is fine, Dr. Morrison said quickly. But I'm calling about something else. I think there are things you need to know about what happened 3 years ago. Things that might help you understand why Sophia is so afraid to trust you again. What do you mean? Can you meet me tomorrow? There's someone I think you should talk to. The next morning, Adrian found himself in a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, sitting across from a nervous-looking young man who introduced himself as David Kim, a former employee of the law firm that had handled Adrian's divorce. I shouldn't be doing this, David said, glancing around the coffee shop like he expected to be arrested. I could lose my license if anyone finds out. Then why are you here? Adrian asked. Because I've been carrying this guilt for 3 years, David replied. And because Dr. Morrison convinced me that the truth needs to come out. Dr. Morrison leaned forward. Tell him what you told me, David. David took a shaky breath. I was a junior associate at Blackwell, Morrison and Associates when they handled your divorce. I was assigned to do research on your wife, background checks, financial records, anything that might be useful in the proceedings. Standard procedure for a high-profile divorce, Adrian said, though something about David's tone made him uneasy. It wasn't standard procedure to fabricate evidence, David said quietly. Adrian felt the world tilt around him. What? Your mother. She came to the firm with very specific instructions. She wanted dirt on your wife, anything that would prove she was a gold digger or had married you under false pretenses. And did you find anything? Adrian asked, though he already knew the answer. Nothing. Sophia Williams was exactly who she appeared to be, a hard-working young woman with no criminal record, no suspicious financial activity, no hidden agenda. She had actually refused several expensive gifts you tried to give her and had never asked you for money. So what did you do? David looked sick. My boss, Richard Blackwell, told me to create some evidence. Fake bank records showing large deposits, fabricated emails suggesting she was in contact with tabloid reporters, forged documents indicating she had been researching your net worth before you met. Adrian felt like he was going to be sick. You framed her. We created a narrative that would support your mother's version of events. That Sophia was a calculating woman who had targeted you for your money and was planning to take you for everything she could get in a divorce. And I believed it, Adrian said, the pieces finally falling into place. My mother showed me those documents, convinced me that Sophia had been using me from the beginning. Your mother paid our firm very well to make the evidence convincing, David admitted. And it worked. You threw your wife out and agreed to a quick divorce with a confidentiality agreement that would prevent her from ever telling her side of the story. Adrian buried his face in his hands, remembering that last terrible night with Sophia. He had been so cold, so cruel, because he had truly believed that their entire relationship had been a lie. He had convinced himself that he was just cutting his losses before she could hurt him worse. There's more, Dr. Morrison said gently. Tell him about the threats. David shifted uncomfortably. After the divorce papers were signed, your mother had me deliver an additional message to Sophia. She was told that if she ever tried to contact you or make any claims about the marriage, she would face serious legal consequences. But there was also a personal threat. What kind of personal threat? Your mother made it clear that she had extensive resources and connections. She implied that Sophia's safety, her ability to find work, even her family's well-being could be compromised if she caused any trouble. Adrian felt rage building in his chest, hot and consuming. My mother threatened Sophia's safety? Not directly, David said quickly. It was all very carefully worded, all legally deniable. But the message was clear. Stay away and keep quiet or face the consequences. So when Sophia found out she was pregnant, Adrian began. She was terrified, Dr. Morrison finished. She thought that if you or your mother knew about the baby, you might try to take Lily away from her. She had no money for lawyers, no way to fight someone with your resources. That's why she disappeared, Adrian realized. She wasn't trying to keep Lily from me out of spite. She was trying to protect her. For 3 years, Adrian had occasionally wondered why Sophia had never contacted him about child support or tried to get money from him for Lily's expenses. He had assumed it was pride or maybe genuine indifference. Now he understood that it had been fear that reaching out to him would bring Victoria Stone's wrath down on her and her innocent daughter. I'm so sorry, David said. I was young and scared of losing my job. I told myself that rich people's marriages fell apart all the time anyway, that I wasn't really changing anything. but I've regretted it every day since. Why are you telling me this now? Adrian asked. Because Dr. Morrison found me, David said. He's been quietly investigating what happened to Sophia 3 years ago. He cares about her and Lily, and he could see that you genuinely want to be part of their lives. He thought you deserved to know the truth. After David left, Adrian sat in the coffee shop for another hour, processing everything he had learned. His mother hadn't just convinced him to divorce Sophia, she had orchestrated the entire thing with lies and manipulation. She had threatened the woman he loved and driven her into hiding, costing him 3 years with his daughter. I have to tell Sophia, Adrian said finally. Yes, Dr. Morrison agreed. But be prepared for her reaction. Learning that she was right to be afraid, that the threats against her were real, it might make her more cautious, not less. I have to try, Adrian said. I have to make this right. That afternoon, Adrian drove back to Millbrook with David's confession recorded on his phone and a copy of the fabricated documents that had destroyed his marriage. He was prepared to show Sophia everything, to prove that their love had been real and that he had been manipulated into throwing it away. But when he arrived at the bakery, he found it closed with a sign that said, Family Emergency. Emma was locking up, and when she saw Adrian, her expression was grim. Where are Sophia and Lily? He asked immediately. They left this morning, Emma said. Sophia got a phone call that spooked her badly. She packed up everything and said they were going away for a while. You would do that? Move to Maine permanently? I would do anything to be part of your and Lily's life, Adrian said. I love that little girl more than I ever thought possible. And I never stopped loving you, Sophia. Even when I was being an idiot, even when I was listening to all the wrong people, you were the only thing that made my life feel real. Sophia was quiet for a long time, watching Lily play by the water. She asks about you constantly, she said finally. When you didn't come to Tommy's party, she wanted to know if she had done something wrong. God, no. She's perfect. You've raised an incredible daughter. We raised her, Sophia corrected quietly. She has your intelligence, your determination. She gets this little wrinkle between her eyebrows when she's concentrating, just like you do. I want to see that wrinkle every day, Adrian said. I want to help her with homework and teach her to drive and walk her down the aisle someday. I want to be her father in every way that matters. And what about us? What about you and me? Adrian took a deep breath, knowing that everything depended on his next words. I want us to try again. I want to do it right this time, no secrets, no family interference, no business taking priority over what we're building together. I want to marry you again, Sophia, but only if you can forgive me for being too much of a coward to fight for you the first time. Tears were running down Sophia's cheeks now. You hurt me so badly, Adrian. I don't know if I can trust you not to do it again. Then let me prove it to you, he said. Let me spend every day for the rest of my life proving that you and Lily are more important to me than anything else in the world. Mama. Daddy. Lily came running over, her hands cupped around something. Look what I found. She opened her small hands to reveal a perfectly heart-shaped stone, smooth and gray with white veins running through it. It's beautiful, sweetheart, Sophia said, wiping her tears away. It's for you and Daddy, Lily announced. Because hearts mean love and I love both of you. She pressed the stone into Sophia's hand, then looked between her parents with the serious expression of a child who sensed that something important was happening. Are you sad, Mama? She asked. Not sad, Sophia said, looking at Adrian. Just thinking about important things. Are you going to come home with us, Daddy? Adrian looked at Sophia, the question clear in his eyes. She stared down at the heart-shaped stone in her palm for a long moment, then back at the man who had given her the greatest heartbreak and the greatest joy of her life. Yes, she said quietly. Daddy's coming home with us. The smile that spread across Lily's face was brighter than the sun reflecting off the lake. Good. Now we can all live together like a real family. Like a real family, Adrian agreed, reaching for Sophia's hand. 3 months later, Adrian and Sophia stood in the garden behind Sweet Dreams Bakery, surrounded by everyone who mattered to them. Emma was crying happy tears as she held Lily, who was wearing a white dress and carrying a basket of flower petals. Dr. Morrison stood nearby with a camera, documenting every moment of the simple ceremony that would bind their little family together forever. The officiant was the same kind minister who had married them secretly in New York 3 years earlier. This time, though, there were no secrets, no shame, no families trying to tear them apart. Victoria Stone had been notably absent from the guest list, and Adrian had made peace with the fact that some relationships couldn't be salvaged. Do you, Adrian Stone, take Sophia to be your wife, to love and cherish her, To put her needs and the needs of your family before all else, for as long as you both shall live? I do, Adrian said, his voice strong and sure. Forever this time. Do you, Sophia Williams, take Adrian to be your husband, to love and trust him, to build a life together based on honesty and commitment, for as long as you both shall live? Sophia looked into Adrian's green eyes, the same eyes their daughter had inherited, and saw only love and sincerity. The walls she had built around her heart hadn't disappeared overnight, but they had come down far enough to let him back in. I do, she said. Forever this time. As they kissed to seal their vows, Lily threw flower petals into the air and cheered. The small crowd applauded, and Emma released a bunch of white balloons that Lily had insisted on because weddings should have something floating in the sky. Later, as they cut the wedding cake that Sophia had made herself, a simple but elegant vanilla cake with fresh strawberries and cream, Adrian pulled his wife aside. I have something for you, he said, producing a small jewelry box. Inside was a simple gold locket, engraved with the date of their first wedding and the date of this one. It opens, Adrian said, showing her that inside was a tiny photo of the three of them taken just last week at the beach. It's perfect, Sophia said, letting him fasten it around her neck. Just like our family, Adrian replied, pulling both his wife and daughter into a hug. As the sun set over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the small wedding party moved inside for dinner and dancing. Adrian danced with his daughter to her favorite song, spinning her around the bakery's main room while she giggled with delight. Later he danced with his wife, holding her close and marveling at how much his life had changed. No regrets? Sophia asked as they swayed to the music. Only one, Adrian said. I regret the 3 years we lost. But I'm grateful for every day we have ahead of us. Even though you're going to be a small-town businessman instead of a New York mogul? Especially because of that, Adrian said. I'd rather be successful at the things that matter than successful at things that don't. The investment firm in Portland had worked out better than Adrian had hoped. He was able to work mostly from home, helping small businesses throughout Maine and New Hampshire grow and thrive. It was satisfying work, and it left him plenty of time for the things that truly mattered, reading bedtime stories, attending school events, helping in the bakery, and falling in love with his wife all over again every single day. 6 months after their second wedding, Sophia surprised Adrian with news that made their happiness complete. Lily's going to be a big sister, she announced one morning over breakfast. Adrian nearly choked on his coffee. Really? Really? Dr. Morrison confirmed it yesterday. We're having another baby? Adrian's voice was full of wonder. We're having another baby, Sophia confirmed. Lily, who had been listening to this conversation with interest, looked up from her cereal. Is the baby going to live with us? Yes, sweetheart, Sophia said. The baby will be your little brother or sister. Good, Lily said with satisfaction. I'll teach them how to make cookies. And she did. 8 months later, when baby James Adrian Stone was born, Lily was right there to welcome him to the family. She helped change diapers, sang lullabies in her sweet 3-year-old voice, and proudly told everyone in town that she was the best big sister in the world. Adrian had never imagined that his life could be so full, so rich with the kind of love that made everything else seem trivial by comparison. He had traded an empire for a family, and it was the best deal he had ever made. Sometimes, late at night when both children were sleeping and Sophia was curled up beside him in their bed above the bakery, Adrian would think about the man he used to be. That man had been successful by every measure society used, wealthy, powerful, respected in business circles. But he had also been empty, lonely, and so afraid of being vulnerable that he had thrown away the most precious thing he had ever found. The man he was now might not have his name on the Forbes list or his picture in business magazines, but he had something infinitely more valuable. He had a wife who loved him, children who ran to greet him when he came home, and a life built on the foundation of what truly mattered. Every morning, Adrian woke up grateful for the second chance he had been given. Every night, he went to sleep knowing that he was exactly where he belonged. And if that wasn't success, he didn't know what was.